Killer woke slowly, his mind weighed down by exhaustion and pain. Shadows clung to the dimly lit trailer, each one flickering with an unsettling life of its own. The air was thick with smoke and strange scents, herbs and old incense mingling to create an atmosphere that felt ancient and foreign, cloaking him in a cocoon of darkness and warmth. Beneath the weight of rough wool and hide, he felt trapped yet comforted, wrapped tightly in layers that had held him in suspension for weeks. When he tried to sit up, a sharp pain flared in his side and memories came crashing back. The operation, the stolen organ, the haunting sense of violation. Pulu's face flashed in his mind. Where was he? Ignoring the pain, Killer forced himself upright and stumbled to his feet, making his way outside. The harsh sunlight struck him, revealing an unforgiving landscape, a brutal stretch of desert far removed from the mountains he knew. Jagged rocks and coarse sand stretched out before him, with thorny patches of green dotting the barren ground, adding to his sense of exile. A figure stood nearby, tall and wrapped in earth-colored robes, moving quietly among a sparse garden of strange, twisted plants. The shaman turned to face him, gaze unreadable but intense. With a silent gesture, he pointed to a pile of wooden poles and animal hides resting beside the trailer. Though weakened, Killer understood. The shaman wanted him to build. Each attempt at constructing the structure felt like a test of willpower and strength. Every time he thought he had it figured out, the frame would collapse, causing the hides to slip and tangle around him. Exhaustion and aching muscles gnawed at him, but the shaman's silent, watchful stare urged him on. Hours passed under the relentless sun until, at last, Killer stood back to see the crude but sturdy teepee rising against the desert's fiery sky. The shaman nodded approvingly and motioned for him to enter. Inside, a small fire burned, its light casting strange shadows along the walls as the shaman handed him a cup filled with dark liquid. "What is it?" Killer asked, his voice rough. The shaman drank from his own cup in response, gesturing for Killer to do the same. "Will this heal me?" Killer asked, motioning to his side. The shaman's face softened, almost amused. With a resigned sigh, Killer drank. The bitter liquid spread through him, warmth quickly turning into a chill that gripped his mind. As the firelight flickered, his vision twisted, and the world dissolved into darkness. He stood at the edge of a vast lake, its surface dark and glassy, stretching into the endless distance. The air was thick with foreboding, a chill running down his spine. Drawn forward, he stepped into the water, feeling its cold embrace pull him under, deeper and darker with each passing second. As he sank, fractured reflections drifted around him, faces of anger, regret, and sorrow surfacing like pieces of his past demanding acknowledgement. The voices whispered through the water, half-forgotten memories and haunting echoes. "Why do you run from your past?" a voice asked, soft but laden with weight. Killer felt his throat tighten, unsure how to answer. The reflections closed in, each one a painful memory he'd buried, now confronting him. Each touch was like ice, stinging his skin as the past swept through him. He saw himself in moments of failure, times when he had been less than he could have been. With each memory, something shifted within him, a heavy awareness settling into his bones. A sudden force yanked him upward, drawing him out of the depths. Breaking the surface of the lake, he gasped for air, finding himself floating in eerie silence, the world around him frozen. Then she appeared. A woman stood across the lake, her figure almost translucent, her expression calm and knowing. The Oracle, the leader of them all, watched him with a gaze that seemed to penetrate his very soul. "Oracle," he whispered, but no sound escaped his lips. Her words entered his mind like distant echoes, each one soft yet carrying a haunting power. "You are the one, Killer." Her voice resonated, quiet but unyielding. "Why me?" he asked, the question heavy in his mind. "What does it mean to be the one?" Her expression softened, though her eyes held a hint of sadness, as if she knew something he didn't. Each trial, each scar, they're all part of you. The pain, the darkness, they have shaped you. "But I don't feel whole," he admitted, the water rippling around him as his thoughts flowed. "Wholeness doesn't mean being untouched by pain," she answered calmly. "It means learning to carry it and still move forward." He looked down, seeing his own reflection, tired, scarred, haunted. Yet he felt something stir within him, a flicker of strength born from the hardships he'd endured. "Then what am I supposed to do?" he asked, desperation edging his thoughts. "Trust yourself," she replied, her tone both solemn and gentle. "The path lies within, but it will not be easy." The lake began to ripple, dark currents swirling between them, breaking the stillness. Her form grew dim, shadows curling around her, pulling her away. "Wait," Killer called out, but her form was already fading, her final thought lingering in his mind. "You are the one, Killer. You always have been." And then she was gone, leaving him alone in the vast, cold water. Killer's eyes snapped open, his body drenched in sweat, heart racing. The fire flickered before him, casting strange shadows along the walls of the teepee. The shaman sat across from him, watching silently, his gaze steady and impenetrable. He felt raw and hollow, as though he'd glimpsed a truth just beyond reach. The oracle's words echoed within him, both haunting and comforting. "You are the one." It felt as much a warning as a promise. Slowly he rose to his feet, the weight of his purpose settling over him like armor. He had to find Pulu, reunite with the oracles, and face the shadows circling in the dark. Everything he'd endured, every scar, every painful memory, was not just a wound, but a guide. Meeting the shaman's gaze, he spoke with quiet determination. "I need a car." For the first time, something flickered across the shaman's face. He gestured to a vehicle waiting in the distance, silhouetted against the dawn. Killer nodded and climbed into the car, feeling the engine hum beneath him, a low, steady beat matching his own heart. With a final glance back, he sped down the highway, leaving the desert and the shaman behind. After hours of driving, Killer reached the outskirts of a small, forgotten town, its buildings leaning against one another like weary sentinels. The entire place had the look of a trap, a town where you didn't linger. He pulled into a dusty lot, stopping at the lone gas station. The flickering neon sign cast a sickly glow, bathing the entrance in an unwelcoming light. As he stepped inside, his eyes adjusted to the dimness. The scent of stale cigarettes and cheap fuel hung thick in the air. Seated by the counter was a figure he'd recognize anywhere. Pulu lounged in a worn leather chair, a lit cigarette between his fingers, watching Killer with mischievous eyes. "Look who finally decided to rejoin the living," Pulu said with a smirk. "Took your time." Killer nodded, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "Had some things to work through. What have you been up to?" "Oh, just a little business venture." "Dak," Pulu replied casually, flicking ash from his cigarette. "Got something going on downstairs. You'll want to see it." He gestured toward a hidden door at the back of the gas station. Killer followed him through a narrow hallway and down a flight of creaky stairs. As they descended, the muffled thump of bass-heavy music grew louder, vibrating through the walls. They emerged into a cavernous underground space pulsating with energy. Neon lights flickered erratically, casting vivid hues over a sea of dancing bodies. "Welcome to Club Relic School," Pulu announced with a grin. The place was alive like nothing Killer had ever seen. Men and women danced with wild abandon, the air thick with smoke and the scent of spilled drinks. Laughter and shouts mingled with the pounding music, creating a chaotic symphony of nightlife. Amidst the crowd, familiar faces from the old days moved to the rhythm. Friends, allies, the fam. It was a reunion beneath the earth, hidden from the world above. A special coffee bar stood against one wall, baristas serving patrons free coffee all night, a stark contrast to the flowing alcohol elsewhere. It was a nod to those who needed a different kind of buzz to keep going until dawn. Killer took it all in, the vibrant atmosphere, the camaraderie, the sense of freedom that permeated the club. Yet, he sensed this wasn't the main event. "This is impressive," Killer admitted, raising his voice over the music. "But I get the feeling this isn't the business you wanted to show me." Pulu's eyes sparkled. "You're right. The real action is further down." They weaved through the crowd, heading toward an unmarked door at the back of the club. Pulu produced a key, unlocking it to reveal another set of stairs descending even deeper into the underground. The air grew cooler, the sounds of the club fading into a distant hum. The second basement was a stark contrast to the lively world above. Dimly lit with low, buzzing lights, the space was filled with a rowdy crowd circling a makeshift ring in the center. Men and women of all kinds gathered around, whispering, cheering, exchanging bets in low voices. This wasn't just a local fight club, it was something darker, something that felt born from the shadows themselves. Pulu grinned, nodding toward the ring. "This place? It's more than just a fight club. It's a stage for killers, a place for settling old debts. People come from all over to see it and make a little cash on the side. Killer scanned the room, recognizing the hunger in their eyes. An underground fight club for killers? Something like that, Pulu said, a glint in his eye. But there's more. I've been tracking someone big in the trafficking ring. Running these operations was the perfect cover to draw him out. I knew I'd need you for the final blow. A chill settled over Killer as he pieced it together. Pulu hadn't just been building a club, he'd been setting a trap. He's here? Pulu nodded, his voice low. Final match tonight. I've baited him into the ring. He thinks he's untouchable, but tonight will prove otherwise. As if on cue, the announcer's voice boomed through the room, hyping the crowd for the main event. A tall, imposing figure entered the ring, the leader of the trafficking ring. His cold eyes swept over the crowd with arrogant confidence. He exuded power, a man who believed he was invincible. The trafficker's gaze locked on Pulu, a twisted smile stretching across his face. Pulu returned the grin, his demeanor calm and collected. You ready for this? Killer asked quietly. Pulu smirked. Born ready. He climbed into the ring, moving with a predator's grace. The crowd's noise dimmed as the two men circled each other, tension thick enough to taste. The trafficker lunged first, throwing powerful, calculated punches aimed to break his opponent. But Pulu moved like liquid, evading each strike with ease. They exchanged blows, brutal and precise. With every hit he took, Pulu seemed to grow stronger, his strikes sharper. The crowd watched in silence as Pulu landed a devastating blow, sending the trafficker reeling, stumbling, blood trailing down his face as his confidence shattered. Pulu didn't relent. With a final thunderous strike, he delivered a blow that knocked the trafficker onto his back. The man's eyes rolled open, staring vacantly at the ceiling, lifeless. A collective gasp swept through the crowd as they realized the ring's master was no more. Panic ignited, screams pierced the heavy silence. The crowd scattered in terror, fleeing toward the exits in a frantic rush to escape the grim reality before them. Killer surveyed the chaos, his eyes meeting Pulu's. Amid the turmoil, a silent understanding passed between them. Ready to get out of here? Pulu asked, his tone eerily calm amidst the pandemonium. Killer nodded. They retraced their steps, ascending first to the now thinning crowd of Club Relic School. The music still pounded, but whispers of the deadly fight spread like wildfire, casting a shadow over the festivities. Exiting through the gas station, they emerged into the early morning light. Dawn was beginning to break, a sliver of light cutting across the desert as they climbed into the car. Next stop, the Oracle? Killer asked, his voice steady. Pulu nodded, a hint of determination in his smile. Let's find her. As they pulled onto the highway, the sun rose behind them, casting long shadows over the empty road. They drove forward, leaving the twisted town and its dark secrets in the rearview mirror. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with mystery and peril, but they moved with unwavering resolve. They were more than men on a mission. They were shadows against shadows, warriors bound to a purpose beyond the rising sun. They were death saints.
Bust it open, let me see you drop.